Spider-Man films. If you're following this as a story, this is like the point where Peter Parker has to make a choice. He has this decision. Is he going to continue living on as Spider-Man, fighting evil, bringing justice, doing good, or is he going to give it up to live for his own desires? What is the thing that Peter Parker desires more than anything? Mary Jane, it's obvious. He's been in love with her for years and years and years. It's his heart's desire is Mary Jane. What is the thing Spider-Man desires more than anything? Save people. To help people. To kick bad guys' butts. Yeah, I mean that's what Spider-Man wants. So why can't these two, why can't Peter Parker and his desires coexist with Spider-Man and Spider-Man's?
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous. Why?
Because somebody finds out his secret identity, he's going to go after everything about bullshit.
Exactly. Now, we're all faced with this decision every day. We have to watch these movies and these movie clips. We have to watch them as though it's a illustration of our choices. Obviously, none of us are going to become Spider-Man anytime. We're not going to get bit by a radioactive spider. That only happens in comic books. So, it's not going to happen anytime soon. But what's the choice I'm talking about? The choice is, how are we going to live our lives? Are we going to live our lives selfishly seeking our own pleasures and our own lusts? Or are we going to live our lives in a way that we're accountable and live our lives in a way that we are responsible? Romans chapter 12, verse 2. This is my favorite verse in the whole Bible because it's the only one that talks about Transformers. It says this. Here we go. I'm reading it for you guys. I'll catch you guys up here in a second. Don't copy. Are you listening? Here we go. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Or as the New International Version puts it, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. See, God has called each of us to be transformed by a renewing of our mind. Not to conform, but to transform. And out of all the versions, I love what the Message Bible has to say, because it makes it very clear. It says, don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit in without even thinking. I like that part where it says without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You will be changed from the inside out. So what does it mean to have a renewing of your mind? What does that mean? To think differently, right? It is as simple as that, that you think differently. Do not conform to any longer pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It means you think differently. Or another way, you live differently, because you no longer think by the same pattern. You have to deny your own desires and follow God. That's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about denying ourselves. What does that mean? Somebody go to Mark chapter 8. Chapter 8, verse 34. Hurry up, hurry up. Who's got it? Chapter 8, verse 34. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Who's got it? Here. Read it. Mark 8:34. I thought you said you had it.
I do have it.
We do have
Then
it.
he called the crowd to him along with the disciples and said, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me.
Thank you. If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me and for the gospel will save it. So in the movie, we watch in this scene as Peter Parker has to deny his own desires to live the life he's chosen to live. To live as Spider-Man, he has to deny his own desires. Mary Jane is basically throwing herself at him. She's basically saying, Peter, now is the time. Peter, if you want me, now is it. And what does Peter tell her?
No.
No, he says, I don't love you. But does he?
Yeah.
Yes. He loves her more than anyone. That is his desire, but he denies it simply so he can live as Spider-Man. It's the same for us. It's exactly the same for us. See, there are things that we desire. There are things that we want. There are our heart's desires. And sometimes we have to deny those if we choose to follow God. Sometimes we have to deny the pleasures of our flesh. The pleasures of our flesh, we have to deny them if we choose to follow God. See, our body, our flesh, craves and wants things that it knows aren't good for us. It will stop at nothing to be pleased. That's all it wants, is to be pleased. That's all your body wants. Through food, through drink, through partying, through sex, through drugs, through alcohol. Your body only wants pleasure. That's the state we live in. We're broken. Our body only wants pleasure. And if you're a slave to it, you give it what you want. If you're a slave to it, you light up that joint and smoke it. Because you're a slave to your body. You're giving it the pleasure it wants. But to follow God, part of being a disciple of Christ is denying the pleasures of the flesh to follow Him. Is putting God in front of that. Is saying, I choose Jesus over this stuff. Now, for those of you who don't know, or who are new, I used to live this life. Okay, I'll admit it. I drank, I smoked, I went to parties. I was like that. I've been there. I've been to the bottom of every bottle. I've seen it. And I know it's not worth it. Okay, before I became a pastor, I did that. Because, hey, that's what college kids are supposed to do, right? College is a big party, right? 4 years you party, you graduate, you grow up, right? No. That's what our world tells us. It's okay to live that way. That's what you're supposed to do in college. You know what? You're supposed to drink behind your parents' back in high school. Then when you get to college, it doesn't matter anymore. That's how the world works. But God says, don't conform any longer to the pattern of this world. He didn't call you to be a conformer. He called you to be a transformer. He called you to be transformed by a renewing of your mind. Now there is still a part of me. There is still cravings in my flesh to live this life. There are still times when I want to go to a party. There are still times when I want to just drink beer. There are still times when I want to go smoke a cigarette. I will deal with those cravings the rest of my life. They never go away. Ever. Because that's what my body wants. That's what it craves. And I gave it to it for so long that my body now cries out for it. And every day it's a struggle. Every day it's a battle I have to fight. But no matter how much of this stuff I did, if I gave in, no matter how much of it I did, I would never, ever, ever be able to satisfy myself. And it's the same for you. No matter how much beer you drink, no matter how much weed you smoke, no matter how many parties you go to, you're never going to get satisfied. It can never, ever, 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 ever satisfy you. There's always something else you want. Something bigger and something better. To put it on a more tangible level, I bought an iPod and I was super excited. I loved it. I was like, yes! I finally got an iPod. I'll never need anything else again. 3 months later, they came out with the iPod Touch. So, guess what I want now? What Joe's got. You know, I want an iPod Touch. But that's the thing. It's like no matter what you get, it's not going to satisfy you. No matter how much you do it, it will never satisfy you. And I lived that way for so long. Always chasing that satisfaction. Always chasing that high. Always trying to get it. But it was just out of reach. Around the corner. I could never get enough. I was living for each party. And it wasn't satisfying. It sucked. I'll flat out tell you, that life sucks. It's not fun. It sounds like fun. It's not. When you wake up and realize that everything you had and everyone you loved has left you, that's when you know you've hit rock bottom. And that's what it will do. It pushes away people you love. It cannot satisfy you. This life is not satisfying. Why not? Because the things that you put into you are finite. They have an end. Everything in this world will pass away. It says that. Everything in this world will fade away. It can't satisfy you because the void that's in your soul is infinite. Your lusts, the pleasures that your body craves are infinite. They will never end. So no matter how much of this stuff you shove in there, no matter how much alcohol, no matter how much drugs, no matter how much pornography, whatever you put in there, it's never going to fill it up because it is finite and your lusts are infinite.